everybody. Good morning, heads in the chat. Love you guys. Wife made me a cup just with your logo on it. Glad to see you guys here. We have a lot to talk about today. This has been a crazy week, hasn't it, folks? I mean, a crazy weeks. Let's start with something that didn't catch a whole lot of news. I did a deep dive on it for the Midas Media Network. It's available to you. Just do a search for Midas, Texas Paul. Look for my latest, filter it by my latest, and you'll find it. It's about Cleta Mitchell, a Trump attorney that is a combatant in the political sphere. She just doesn't, she didn't just represent Trump. She's actually working today in his campaign, and they are having a fit. You remember the election that we recently had in Wisconsin, where we had a stunning victory by Janet Protasiewicz in the Wisconsin Supreme Court. I mean, it was major. Most elections, folks, are come down to it's a blowout if it's 4 or 5 points. People don't realize that these voter suppression efforts are so, well, they just work, folks. They just work, because what decides our elections normally, in a close contest, will come down to a point, 1 percentage point. And that's because we Democrats don't really get our people out to vote like we should. But that's a whole nother subject that I'm just not going to go down that road right now. I want to stay focused on Cleta Mitchell. But even a blowout race is 4 to 5 points. So if you can get 4 or 5 people out of 100 not to be able to cast their ballot, or just not to show up to vote, you can radically change the political landscape. I mean, think about that, folks. 4 or 5 people out of 100 that you somehow don't get to vote, your opponent's voters, you can keep them away. Well, that's what Cleta Mitchell is really focused on, folks. Gen Z scared the ever-loving crap out of the Republicans. Excuse me. Man, that coffee's good this morning. I hope your coffee's as good as mine. But Gen Z, man, they did it. They brought it. They have dived headfirst into the pool of democracy. And they had a massive turnout in Wisconsin. Massive. People don't realize just how big of a voting pool Gen Z is, and how really easy it is to get them to turn out. And this has Republicans terrified. Cleta Mitchell gave a speech, and I really hope you can go back and look at it. I did a really good deep dive on this. Thank you, Benaloco. I appreciate that. Did a really serious look at this and what they're talking about. But just to Cliff's Notes version, there are 3 counties in North Carolina that just really have a lot of colleges. There's Mecklenburg, Durham, and Wake County. And they represent tens of thousands of college students. And what Cleta Mitchell is upset about is because, in her words, we want to put a polling place outside of every dorm so a college kid can just roll out of his bed or her bed, go out and vote, and then go back to bed. Well, yeah, we do. Yeah, we do. We like democracy. We know that when people vote, because we are the overwhelming majority in this country, Republicans are just radicals that represent a small faction of the country, but they all vote. They all show up to vote. They're angry, pissed off, blue hairs, and racists, and those people turn out. And they know that if we can get just even a portion of people that think like we do to show up, they're screwed, man. They are screwed. And they're terrified because Gen Z is doing it. So what they're focused on are creating election integrity groups. And if you want to know what a Republican election integrity group looks like, think about the Oath Keepers that were sitting outside ballot drop boxes with AR-15s. That's what they call election integrity. So the point of this is, and again, please, I'm going to ask you, go to Midas, find my video. I do a deep dive on this. I talk about the universities they're targeting. I talk much more in depth than this on it. But the point of it is, to wrap this up, is they want, they're coming after Gen Z. They are. They're coming after them, and they're going to come after them hard, especially at the colleges. They're going to try to make it incredibly hard and use every legal dirty trick over the next year to keep Gen Z from voting. And you need to help every young voter get out there and vote. You need to talk to your grandkids. You need to talk to your kids. You need to let them know. They don't know right now. They don't know that they've scared the shit out of Republicans. They don't know. All they know is that, hey, we won an election and people are paying attention to us now. They're paying attention to our issues. And that's fantastic, but they don't know what that means. They don't know that means that they're going to have a bunch of very rich, powerful, very scared oligarchs coming after them, and that they need to be prepared with documentation if they want to repeat what they did in Wisconsin and keep being so relevant on the political landscape, that they are going to have to take some extra steps this time. They're going to have to make sure their driver's licenses are current. They're going to have to make sure that their driver's licenses reflect their addresses. They're going to have to, I mean, there's a lot to this, folks. And the Democratic Party better get off their ass and get busy, because these folks need our support, and they need your support. And I have to tell you, folks, I'm not just a talking head. I'm not somebody that's just all over your social media. I get out. I meet with these groups. I strategize with these groups. I help groups that fundraise for Democrats. I help groups that get out the vote for Democrats. This is part of what I do. I go give speeches. This is what I do. I'm not just somebody running their mouth. I'm asking you please, you step out of the role of just being a consumer, an election consumer. Your vote is fantastic. And if you're watching me, you already vote. You do. What I'm asking you is, start helping the folks around you. Start getting those like-minded people to the polls. We need to be next level, folks. We don't have oligarchs funding us. We just don't have oligarchs funding us. Well, moving on, folks, we've had another insane shooting of someone that pulled into the wrong address. I'm not talking about the young woman that was killed the other day. I'm talking about, we have just had another one in a little town of Davie, Florida. And this is getting to be so enraging, is the word. Just enraging. Valdez Thomas Jr. was an Instacart delivery driver. He was delivering some groceries in Davie, Florida. Davie, Florida's west of Fort Lauderdale, a little bit southwest of Fort Lauderdale, north of Miami. And he was doing his job. He had his girlfriend in the car. It was a late night delivery. They were going to do something afterwards. He was on the phone with his customer, following directions. Got to the customer's house, pulled in. Only he screwed up. He pulled into the house right next door. Literally right next door to his customer. Well, the people, if you want to call them that, Antonio Cacavalli, 43-year-old chicken shit, 43-year-old white guy. It's always a freaking white guy, man. I tell you, it's always a freaking white guy that's terrified by somebody that pulls in their driveway. I don't get it. Somebody pulls in my driveway, I walk up, "Hey, how you doing? What can I do for you?" You know? No, he comes running out with a flashlight. They tried to block the car in, terrified the shit out of these young kids. And they were young. They're in their 20s. You know, they were Instacart delivery person just trying to make a living. They're telling them, and I need you to please get in the mindset of these people. You're trying to deliver some groceries. Are you being belligerent? Are you being aggressive? No, no, you're not. But according to Mr. Thomas and Miss Darville that were in the car, these folks came out of the house just losing their damn mind. You know, shining a flashlight in their faces, you know, giving them the third degree, and they started to get aggressive. They started to try to block in their car, so they panicked. They threw the car in reverse and tried to leave. That's important to this. They were trying to leave. Well, this idiot Antonio Cacavel has seen way too damn many movies, and that's a problem. We're gonna talk about this in a second about guns and movies. He thinks he can detain these people, so he tries to grab onto their car, and when he grabs onto their car, the car kicks up a rock and hits his foot. I'm not even kidding. This is his testimony. So he opens fire on the car, fires 3 shots into the car. I mean, that's pretty clear to me that this guy needs to go to jail. He needs to lose his gun privileges for life. I mean, how do you get more irresponsible than that? I mean, somebody's trying to leave. They're panicking and trying to leave. By his testimony, he was trying to shoot out the tire. And that's what I'm talking about, Hollywood. Folks, you can't shoot out tires on cars. That is a complete and whole cloth made up fiction from Hollywood. And way too many people live in these delusions from Hollywood. They get their legal advice from Hollywood. And I'm not punching Hollywood in the face here because they're doing their job. They're making movies that are supposed to be interesting and cool and fun for us to watch. They're supposed to get us out of reality. And here we go. We got a guy that whips out a gun, tries to shoot out a tire. Didn't give a damn who he hurt. You know, thank God the 2 people, Mr. Thomas and Miss Darville, were not hurt. But they drove down the road and called the police like responsible people would do. Police show up, and this is the part that's just got me so pissed off, just in the outer orbits of pissed off. The police looked at this and said, well, Mr. Thomas was within his rights and did nothing wrong when he fled. Well, no shit, Sherlock. No shit, Sherlock. But then they, Davey, please turn around and say, well, Mr. Caravelli, he was perfectly within his rights because of his perception of the situation and his fear. Not the reality of the situation, which we all have to live in. His perception and his fear, made it okay. Marcus, thank you very much. I was just about to say the exact same thing. Marcus T, thank you. I appreciate this comment. Florida's laws make this legal. This guy will face no charges. Unless it just gets to be so embarrassing and the white hot intensity of what we do here. If you share this and share other people's videos when you see that, because this is starting to make its rounds on social media, if you can embarrass the shit out of Florida and the Davie Police Department, maybe something will be done. Maybe. But right now, they're just cool with it, man. They're just cool with it. Somebody pulls in your driveway and you can say you're scared. Hey, man, you can shoot at them. And think about how mind-bendingly backwards this is. He wasn't shooting at them to stop a threat. I mean, think about that. They were fleeing. He was shooting at them to keep them here. If something is a threat to you, so threatening that you think that you have to use deadly force to defend yourself. I'm not just talking about a gun. He had to be scared enough that if he had an axe in his hand, that he'd had to attack them with an axe, whatever weapon he had available. Think about that. They were fleeing, and he tried to detain them. Exactly, Mike T. You're on fire, man. You are on fire. Stop or I'll shoot. More Hollywood bullshit. Outstanding question, Gloria Ortiz. I hate this. Let me stop the show for a second. Answer this question. Paul, I live in the Florida Panhandle. Do I have to get a weapon? I go sideways a lot. You know, I'm the founder of the Ride or Die Democrats. And what it means to be a Ride or Die Democrat is you fight for what you believe in, but you know at the end of the day, the Democratic Party is the best way moving forward. They're the only humans in the game. They're the only people that are trying to do things like make sure everybody has health care. We have access to education. We have, they're the only people governing in the game. So you fight like hell in the primaries. This is what it means to be a ride or die Democrat. You fight like hell in the primaries for what you believe in. But when the primaries are over, you vote for the Democrat. And then you go on again, fighting. Threaten to primary that sumbitch when he gets into office, when he wins his election. Bring the phone off his wall in his office. Let him know that you want him to address your issues the way you want to. You keep fighting. Being a ride or die Democrat doesn't mean we all have to be homogenous. And this is where I differ from a lot of people, and I fight for what I believe in. I'm not a give up the guns guys. I'm not. That's a gun cabinet behind me. I like my guns. I do. But I recognize that the most important R when it comes to owning a gun is responsibility. It's not rights. It's responsibility. And we've become such an irresponsible society that idiots like Caravelli thinks that he can, Caccavelli thinks that he can just open fire on somebody. Stop or I'll shoot. That means that I'm going to have to give up some of my rights. And all rights, they try to argue that you can't do that because it's a right and it's a God-given right. So you can't know all rights are abridged. All rights are abridged to some degree. The only argument we're having is where that falls. You can't, there are limitations on the weapons that you can own. There are things that are illegal in this country. And I'll give you an example where I run sideways of the left, the farther people farther left than me. I am a liberal. Don't get me wrong. I am a screaming liberal. This is the one area where we disagree. I have profound hearing loss. I have profound hearing loss because I used to shoot competitively. When I was a young man, we would shoot several times a week, thousands of rounds a week. And what we were given for hearing protection, a lot of veterans lost their hearings to these things. There were little spongy things that you'd roll in your finger, make it small enough to fit in your hearing canal, and you'd push it in, and it would swell. And we were told that was adequate hearing protection. That's what it was marketed. This will keep you from going deaf. Well, it didn't work. I went deaf. I love to shoot, folks. That's the whole point of that story. I love to shoot. I gave up my hearing to shooting. So I believe that sound suppressors shouldn't just be legal, they should be mandatory. There are so many kids out there shooting with their dads that are damaging their hearing right now. And it's a horrible thing. It really is a horrible thing. So that's where I differ from a lot of folks on the left. I believe sound suppressors should be mandatory. But I also know that given our current environment and how stupid people are, just go on, just go on YouTube. Just go on YouTube and look at the amount of shows out there with millions of views. Just out there talking about shooting your fellow Americans. Well, this gun can penetrate your average plate, the plates that go inside the tactical vest, you call them bulletproof vests, Well, this bullet can penetrate this class plate. This bullet can penetrate that class plate, and this is, I mean, it's insane. It's insane the amount of rhetoric. That was a big no-no when I was growing up. You didn't even load your weapons before you were on the firing line, or what we called in the box in skeet and trap and sporting clays, things like that. It's called in the box. You had a place where you stood that was safe in front of everyone else. Everyone else stood behind you because you fired in group. You competed in teams and groups. You couldn't load your weapon until you were in that box. Nobody walked around with loaded weapons, and you sure as hell didn't talk about shooting people. If you had made a comment about shooting another human being while at one of these ranges, you would have been ejected and banned. It was understood then. You didn't talk about that. You just didn't. And now today there are hundreds of YouTube channels talking about it on a daily basis. They have sporting competitions where they pretend to be shooting people. And it's insane. It's just insane. And that is why I know I'm going to have to give up some of my rights. I'm going to have to give up some of my guns. I'm going to have to give up access to some of my guns. And, first thing that's got to go are all of my high capacity magazine have to go. And people are like, well, what does it matter? They're just going to change magazines. If there's only 10, they'll just keep changing magazines. It matters because what we say matters. And I'll segue out to the death penalty. Why I'm anti-death penalty. Not because I don't think there are people in this world that should be put to death. Because believe me, I do. But I'm against the death penalty because the death penalty says the government believes that in certain circumstances, it's okay to kill. That's why I'm anti-death penalty. And that message matters because that leaks down into the public. And the public believe, because we are the government, we the people is a real thing. It's not an idea, it's a real thing. We the people start to feel like, okay, well, there are some circumstances when I can kill. And there's only one circumstance where any human being should kill, and that's when your life's in danger. Well, that and war. And that's when your country's in danger. But we have to change the narratives, folks. And that's why I know I am sitting here saying I love guns. I don't want to give up my guns. I don't want to. I don't want to give up my high capacity magazines. I don't want any of that. But I know to change the conversation, if you take those high capacity magazines away as the first step, the narrative around guns changes. From it's my right to, well, shit, we better be responsible or we're going to lose more. And we desperately need that to change. Well, folks, we've had a couple other things pop up in the news. One is Mike Pence has given an interview, says that he will be declaring his candidacy for president by June. I'm not even kidding. That guy has a delusion that he stands a chance in running for president. Mike Pence has no idea that if you created a Venn diagram, if you don't know what a Venn diagram is when you see those circles and they overlap and you've got one circle represents one group and one circle represents another group, and where they overlap, they form a third group. If you created a Venn diagram of people, of Republican voters in one circle, and people that wanted Mike Pence to die on January 6th because he would not destroy our democracy and interfere with the transition of power in our government. If you created that Venn diagram, they would be a perfect circle that overlapped each other. It would just be a perfect circle. The Republican Party has about as much of an appetite, much of a thirst for Mike Pence right now as they do for Bud Light. And he has no clue. Isn't that scary, folks? He was the vice president of the United States of America, and he is this out of touch. Republicans are delusional, insane creatures. Insane. Speaking of which, you have Trump saying, sending a message directly to Mike Flynn, stay healthy, man, because I'm going to be back in office in just a little over a year, and you're going to be in my cabinet. I'm not even kidding. He said that in a speech. Donald Trump says that Mike Flynn is going to be in his cabinet. If you had any reason at all to go vote, no reason at all to go vote, there's your reason right there. Donald Trump is going to put Mike Flynn in his cabinet if he gets his hands on the reins of power. No Republican can get their hands on the reins of power ever again. Ever again. Republicans, I want to kind of illuminate the terrain in which we are currently deployed. Folks, Republicans have jumped the shark. No one is buying their bullshit anymore but their core. And that is a small fragment of our society. At this point, if we continue fighting, folks like me continue out there churning and burning and busting our ass, getting the message out. You continue to spread the message. You continue to stay active. You continue to volunteer. You continue to vote. Folks, you will end the Republican Party. They are on the edge of the cliff. That's why they're fighting so radically. That's why we're getting so much radical crap. The tiny D stuff in Florida attacking Disney and that flailing and the abortion stuff. For years, abortion, Roe v. Wade was never supposed to be overturned ever. It was their go-to fundraiser. It was the Republicans' go-to get out the vote. Vote for us and we'll make abortion illegal, but it was never really supposed to happen because that's killing the goose that gives the golden egg for them. But they have gotten to the point now that they are so desperate that they did it, and they're going to continue to do it because that's what a dying animal does. That's what a dying animal does. That's a fantastic question. A little bit off topic where I was going, but let's talk about it. But Paul, if the Republican Party dies, what keeps Manchin's and the Dem Party from gaining power? We do. There will always be somebody like a Joe Manchin or a Joe Lieberman or somebody like that. We cannot let that define us. We can't, because that is not the Democratic Party. You know it and I know it. That's why he's such an outlier. Is there always going to be some chump like that? Yes, there is. But that's not the point. What's going to happen when we finally kill the Republican Party? That leaves room for somebody like a Rick Wilson, who is never going to be a Democrat. Never. And that's our fault, folks. That's our fault. We let the Republicans engage in a war on us for decades where we did not fight back. We high-roaded the shit out of it. Well, these are our ideas. Ha, ha, ha. People don't live that way. People follow strength. And if you got one guy over here saying, but I've got good ideas, and then you've got a guy over here that's saying, you're a dick, they're going to follow the guy that runs his mouth. Because he's, he may be wrong, he may be an idiot, he may be a bully, but at least at that moment he's showing strength, and most people follow strength. And that's why I am the way I am. I don't hold back. I call it the way it is. I say Republicans are crap. They are horrible human beings. They are horrible human beings. But if we destroy, to answer your question, I don't want to get too far off, so I forget to come back. To answer your question, if we destroy the Republican Party, it's not the Manchins that are going to come out. It's going to be the guys like Rick Wilson, who was raised in several decades of I hate Democrats. He's programmed that way. He is always going to be in opposition, but he's not insane. He's wrong on a lot of shit. I disagree with him on a lot of shit, but he's not insane. And they will be able to coalesce and form an opposition party, a real Joe Walsh is another example. If you don't follow Joe Walsh on Twitter, you're making a mistake. He is a wonderful barometer for what Republicans are, because he is catching holy hell. He has been ejected from the Republican Party. He still feels himself to be ideologically a Republican, but MAGA had, because MAGA is what it is. It's Marjorie Taylor Greene. It's little Jimmy Jordan. It's turned into this piece of crap. Michael Steele is not insane either. No, he is not. He is not. He is not insane. He's wrong on a lot of crap, but he's not insane. Those people will have breathing room to form an opposition party. And we need that as Democrats. We know we need that. We don't want to be a one-party rule party. We want a real opposition party. We need it to be a check against us, something to put our shoulders against when we're working on to keep us from going too far. Because I'm no pie in the sky dreamer. We can make mistakes. Democrats can go too far. We can. And we need somebody that makes us pay at the ballot box when we do. Thank you for bringing that up. I appreciate that. Damn, I'm running out of coffee. Moving on, folks. Moving on. We have had a really interesting, and interesting is the wrong word. I'm just going to say it. It's shitty turn of events regarding abortion. You've seen this guy before. You've seen this guy. I'll pull him up. Hold on. There you go. There's a better picture of him. Judge Matthew Kaczmarek. He's the radical freak judge. Comes out. He's been hiding, redacting information on his financial disclosures. That's one problem with the guy. It is stupid. This shows just how, thank you, honey. This just shows how radical and stupid this guy is. What he redacted and kept people from seeing was his largest financial disclosure. Well, that's going to draw attention. But it's not even a conflict of interest. It just makes him look bad. And it doesn't really make a normal person look bad. It just makes him look bad. Because he's trying to push this, I'm a rebel maverick, this and that. He's a trust fund baby. He's a trust fund baby. He had millions of dollars in stock that he got from his grandma and a trust she set up for him. And he didn't want anybody to know that he was a trust fund baby. It's Publix, by the way, Publix grocery store. His grandma used to work at Publix grocery store long time ago when they were little, like a lot of people that, when they get on the ground floor, they buy stocks, stock options, whatnot. Grandma did that and got fabulously wealthy. Little Matty Kaczmarek grew up with a silver spoon in his mouth. He didn't want people to know that. But anyways, that character that he's displaying there runs through. Thank you, Martha. Right on the head. Typical spoiled brat. And his character shows it. His character shows it. What he's famous for now. What he's famous for now is the I'm going to butcher this, mifepristone ruling. And if you're unfamiliar what's happened there and what mifepristone is, just a little background. Mifepristone is a drug. It's RU-486, folks. It's RU-486. If you're old like me, RU-486 rings a bell. Mifepristone, you have no idea what it is. It is a chemical abortion, is what it is. It's safe. It was approved back in 2000 by the FDA. It's non-surgical, so while it's uncomfortable and difficult for a woman, it is a better alternative than a D&E or a D&C. It's less dangerous for a woman. It was approved back in 2000. It's manufactured by a company called Danco Labs. Well, a group of anti-abortion doctors, and there's nothing more of a lowlife or a low character individual than somebody in the anti-abortion movement. I will tell you, they are out and out liars, and that's where we're going with this. A group of doctors from Tennessee that are anti-abortion before they're doctors threw their character out the window. They incorporated their group in Amarillo, Texas. That's where Judge Kaczmarek is a district judge. He's a Trump appointee. which should be irrelevant to this because a judge should be a judge no matter who puts you in the damn job. But he's a radical. He has no respect for precedents whatsoever. He is an activist. Remember when right-wingers used to talk about activist judges? That's what this guy is. He is going to push through his beliefs no matter what. So this group incorporated in Amarillo just to get in his courtroom. That's the first red flag with this, is they were judge shopping the shit out of this. Second red flag is the attorney they hired to represent them is a woman by the name of Erin Morrow Hawley. Yeah, that Hawley. She's Josh Hawley's wife. Senator Josh Hawley's wife. You know, the guy who was out there on January 6th. Oh, yeah, rah, rah. You know, that Hawley. And then 20 minutes later, he's like, oh, you know, that Josh Hawley, his wife is their attorney. Third red flag is they tried to hold the hearing in secret. It didn't work. It blew up on them. The judge asked the lawyers not to tell anybody about it. Of course, it leaked out. And why hold it in secret, folks? Why? It's going to blow up on the national stage. Nothing you rule is or any of the arguments, they're not going to be hidden. So why hold it? Why try to keep it secret? He said he would just because Merrick said he told the lawyers he would announce it the day before. Why do that? Well, I'll tell you why, folks. If you're not from Texas, we're a big state. I mean, really freaking big. Maps don't do it justice. Maps really don't do it justice. Where I live in Texas, on the eastern portion of Texas, I am closer to Miami than I am the New Mexico-Texas border. It's a big freaking state, folks. Amarillo is out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, just out in the middle of nowhere. If you look at Texas, you've got the panhandle on top. Amarillo's out in the middle of that panhandle. There are no major airports near Amarillo. DFW is a hell of a long ways. OKC, Oklahoma City is a long ways away. Santa Fe is a long ways away. I mean, you're talking about hours and hours and hours and hours of driving. And that was the point of keeping it secret. Press couldn't get there if you kept it a secret. Protesters couldn't get there if you kept it a secret. Well, like everything else, it blew up. Everything else Republicans do, it blew up. It didn't work. But it's always a red flag when things have to be done in the dark. And that's what I really want to talk about right now. Now let's wrap this up first. Went to the appeals court. This is important. 2 of the judges in the appeals court, 2 out of 3, which means you had a judge actually vote to uphold this ban that this one district judge. A lot of people ask, well, how can this one judge in Texas do this? Because he's a federal judge. He's not a Texas judge. He's a federal judge. One of the judges on the appeals court actually agreed with this guy. The appeal was based on a simple legal fact. The drug was approved in 2000. The statute of limitations for challenging its approval had passed. That is simply looking at the law and reading it. This was not a legal debate. The appeal was based on this case had no standing because the statute of limitations had run out on appealing mifepristone's approval, which is what this radical judge, Judge Kazmierek, ruled, that it had been illegitimately approved. Well, you can't challenge that now. There's a reason you can't challenge that. There's a reason you can't challenge that because things have to function in real life. We have to be able to go from day to day to day without the courts being a nightmare mess in everybody's business. So really, it was that simple, folks. It was looking at the law and saying, okay, the law says you have this long to appeal this, that you're out of this by more than a decade. No. And one judge couldn't do that out of a 3-judge panel. That's how radical these Republicans have gotten. Then the plaintiffs appeal to the Supreme Court, trying to get the Supreme Court to step in. Well, the Supreme Court's in a bit of a bind there because they overturned Roe v. Wade on the precedent that they set, saying that the federal government needs to stay out of these things. The federal government has to stay out of this. Well, they can't really rule in Kaczmarek's favor now, can they? Because that is the federal government breaking its own law to interfere with this. You'd think this would be a no-brainer, just, hey, kick this back. The appeals court's right. Let's do this. Go ahead and hold your hearing, but you're going to lose because of the law. Easy peasy, right? Nah. Samuel Alito, he can't go along with this. He has a hissy fit in his opinion that he writes on this. He says, well, it doesn't matter because the Biden administration, they wouldn't follow our ruling anyways. What? When has the Biden administration not followed the law? The Biden administration is following the law in this case. Samuel Alito is a little political twat. He is not a fit justice for the Supreme Court. That was a delusional right-wing political statement, and it has no place in the Supreme Court. No place whatsoever. But I will tell you, this ruling is more problematic than that because the appeals court set a horrible precedent in this, and I need you to hear this, folks. The Supreme Court, the appeals court, altered the approval for mifepristone. Mifepristone had been approved up to 10 weeks in a woman's pregnancy for use up to 10 weeks. The appeals court changed that to 7. And nobody can come up with a reason why that's legal. They just did it. And it sets a horrible precedent for states to argue, well, this drug is approved up to 10 weeks and abortion is legal, but I guess we can go ahead and limit this anyways. Why not? The appeals court did it. Deirdre, I hear you. By the way, if you don't know Deirdre, she's a wonderful human being. I've met her in person. We met in Dallas at a door knocking event. She's one of the people. She's one of the real deals to get out there and get it done. She is a great person. She's very sweet, very nice. I get it. I'm tired of this too. I think everybody's tired of this. And I go back to what I say earlier. The Republican Party's done. Nobody's hearing it. Nobody wants to hear an argument out of them. Nobody wants to hear anything. They've jumped the shark. Everyone is tired of this. And it's a simple thing for us Democrats to run on. If you vote Democrat, a beer is just a beer. If you vote Democrat, we're not going to have all this drama about abortion. If you don't want an abortion, don't get one. but your religion is going to stay in your church and in your heart, and in your house, and not our government. This drama all goes away if you vote Democrat and eliminate the Republican Party. It's that simple. It's really that simple. Democrats are not going to go to your church and say, "You can't believe this." No, they're not. They're not. We've let you be you out believing in your invisible sky wizard with his Wi-Fi connection to your brain so he knows your thoughts shit forever. And we will continue to. We'll fight to our death for you to be able to believe that shit. But if you vote Democrat, the drama goes away. The drama goes away. What I want to wrap up with on while we're talking about the abortion issues, I want to talk about how low in character these anti-abortion people are. They like to present themselves as though they're these, baby saving angels and shit like that. They're not. They're not. Judge Kaczmarek in his ruling, he's so radical. He says that the use of the word fetus is misused, and it is. It is. Fetus means after 8 weeks. Before that, you've got zygote, blastocyte. You've got, there are other medical terms, and fetus, we just use it as a catch-all for all of it. He said, "Well, that's inaccurate, and I don't like that." So his response wasn't to be accurate and refer in his ruling to things as zygotes and blastocytes, and then eventually fetuses. And no, he said, "We'll just call it a human." A human. So everywhere in the ruling, it says this drug is used to kill humans. Like it's a school shooting or something, which they'll do nothing about. And this judge will never do anything, allow anything to be done to prevent. It's that change in rhetoric. It's always dishonest rhetoric. It's never accurate. And the most obvious example of that is if you ever look at their literature or their films or their documentaries, they always use these images that are not real. They're not real. If you see a pamphlet from an anti-abortion group, they'll show the baby. The damn baby looks 3 feet freaking tall at 6 weeks old, and it's not. They're having a fit, folks, and I want you to take a look at this. It's not hard to look at at all because it's real. It's real. There's gonna be a couple issues. Images. I'm gonna keep this up for just a bit for you. Dr. Joan Fleischman, who you're looking at there, has a project she's working on. It's called The Issue of Tissue. Folks, we've had a real problem. Doctors have always created a fiction around pregnancy, a fiction. If you went to Lamaze class or hanging in your doctor's office or whatever, you have cartoons of what a zygote looks like, a fetus looks like, whatever, and they're never accurate. They're not real. They're not real. They intentionally make it endearing so that the mother will take good care of herself and what's growing inside her. There is a lot of blame to be put on doctors for how wrong this whole debate has gone, because they never really told mothers accurate information or showed mothers accurate information. Folks, this is a 6-week-old zygote, or fetus, whatever you want to call it. in that petri dish. And here, let me scroll up and show you some more, because this is important. This is important. And the petri dish on the right, that's an 8-week-old fetus. Real. That's really been taken out of a woman. That is real, folks. It's not that little baby with the freaking Arnold Schwarzenegger arms they always show you in the anti-abortion rhetoric, or in your doctor's office. Or in your doctor's office when you go to your OBGYN. It's just not. The images you see primarily come from one source. It was a photographer by the name of Leonard Nielsen. And I encourage you to Google him, Leonard Nielsen, L-E-N-N-A-R-T, Nielsen, N-I-L-S-S-O-N, Nielsen. Probably got that wrong, folks, but it'll be close enough for Google to find it. He's a photographer. And what he did was he took embryos. He had one photograph where he used an endoscope to go inside a pregnant woman's uterus and took partial pictures of a baby. Well, everybody assumes all of his pictures are that, and they aren't. They are not. And I am not flaming him here. I am not. He was never political. He had a stated goal of photographing the inside of the human body. And he took pictures of organs. He took pictures of everything. It was never political from him, but it was always artistic. So what he did was they grew fetuses in incubators. And you have these pictures. And it looks like it's inside the womb because the background is dark. But it's lit. It's professionally lit. How the hell did he get a damn lighting device up inside the uterus? He didn't. These are grown fetuses suspended in a fluid to create a photograph, and the scales are not correct. They're airbrushed. They're laid out to give the most appealing picture possible. They're made up to make you believe that this is living inside someone's body. And it's not. It's not. It's like an Instagram influencer. You see a picture of an Instagram influencer. She's leaning, or he's leaning a certain way so that there's no tummy fat, bent over so there's no cottage cheese on the butt. They're airbrushed. There's filters on the camera. The pictures are touched up to get rid of that pimple that popped up on the butt before the picture. That's what those pictures are. And they're everywhere because he was a splendid photographer. He was a splendid photographer. He never intended. This is why I'm not flaming the guy. I'm not. It was not his intention for these to be used as scientific photos for people to learn from. Going back to guns in Hollywood. Hollywood is doing their job. This guy was doing their job. And the anti-abortion people, instead of showing you what these things really look like so that you can make real laws in reality, are showing you these doctored photos from back in the 60s. Google Leonard Nielsen, please, after the show. You'll see what I'm talking about. All of these photos, this tissue is laid out perfectly to try to make it look as appealing as possible. But fetuses aren't that freaking big at 6-8 weeks. They aren't. There's big as your pinky fingernail. That's what you're looking at. And it's just a mass of tissue. It's not, there is no heartbeat at 6 weeks old. There isn't, because there isn't a heart. There isn't a circulatory system. What you're hearing are extremely sensitive microphones listening for an electrical impulse. That's what you're hearing. That's why these fetal heartbeat bills are bullshit. Do you know why they go at 6 weeks? Because of the timing. You can't tell you're pregnant by 6 weeks usually. And they don't tell you this, 80% of abortions are done prior to 10 weeks. Prior to 10 weeks. So if they can get the ban at 6 weeks, they know they can knock out. Even if we fight tooth and nail to get exceptions for the life of the mother and everything else, they know they can knock out 80-90% of abortions, which is just wrong, because the debate isn't who gets to decide whether or not a woman can have an abortion. Or pardon me, it's not when a woman can have an abortion. It's who gets to decide in the end if she can have an abortion, and that's a woman and her doctor. A woman gets to decide and find a doctor that will ethically do it. That's it. Nobody else is in the conversation. Thank you for making this comment, Dystopian Dragon. I appreciate you. That's a fact. If the mother dies, the baby dies. And there are some cases, I'll tell you a story. My wife brought this to me. A woman, Cliff's Notes, we're running short on time. A woman was having a very complicated pregnancy at 26 weeks. She became so severely ill, they had to take the baby at 26 weeks. The child survived and has had monstrous health problems. It's not going to live for very long. And the life it does have is horrible because of all the health issues. And a lot of people would argue, that's not your place to judge. It's their life and this, that, and the other. Yes. But you know what? The mother, a few weeks on, went on to die because of the complications from that pregnancy. And they had 7 children. 7 children. 7. And now 7 children have no mother. And that's wrong. That's wrong. That decision was wrong. Not all decisions in life are pain-free. The moment that woman's pregnancy became so complicated that it was endangering her life, she should have been counseled to end that pregnancy. Period. She failed her children. Her husband failed his children. So anyways, folks, we've gone a little bit long, and I apologize for that. You know, at the end of the show, I like to have a round table to answer any questions that you have. Let's go ahead and move to that portion of the show. Let's go ahead and I'll answer any questions you have about anything we talked about or anything else that happens to be going on. Throw them out there, and I will be glad to talk about that with you. Here's a good comment while I'm waiting for your questions. Amanda, I thank you. Seems like the population can be regulated from the Duggars. The more kids they have, the less I want. Thank you for bringing up the Duggars, because, you know, Jess Duggar, she had an abortion. Unlike the woman in the story I just told you, Jess Duggar, when things went south for her, she went and had an abortion. And these are the same people telling you that you can't have abortions, trying to pass laws, help the Republicans pass laws. They are Republicans to say you can't have one. Philip, that's the mifepristone that we've been talking about. RU-486. That mifepristone is RU-486. I really appreciate this one, Lulu. Thank you. What is your opinion when people say Biden is too old to be president? People like Steve Schmidt. Um, I'll be honest with you. I wasn't a Biden supporter. I wasn't. And I will tell you, I was wrong. I was wrong. I in the primaries, I voted for Mayor Pete. I did. Pete Buttigieg. I want young blood in the Democratic Party. But I have to tell you something. Joe Biden has been the man for the job. And I have never been so happy to tell people that I was wrong about Joe Biden. And as long as he is mentally fit and competent, which he is, I don't give a damn if he had a speech impediment. The guy has done an incredible job as president. I'll give you one example. Whenever there's a major crisis, like we had COVID that shut down our economy, compare that to back at the end of Jimmy Carter's term when we had the oil embargo that shut down our economy. Whenever something like that ends, the economic response is an explosion. People have been pent up. They go all Woody Woodpecker and get out there and go and do and this, that, and the other, and the economy explodes. Inflation and rising interest rates are always what happens next. Compare the two. In Reagan, we had massive inflation. We had double-digit inflation forever. I mean, houses went from being $25,000 to go buy a house to $125,000 to go buy a house. I mean, it was just massive inflation. Interest rates got up to 18, 19, 20% in some cases, folks. My sister bought a home with a 16% mortgage. Compare that to Joe Biden. I mean, we've got 5, 6% interest rates and they're falling. They did an amazing job of handling this recovery. Inflation is coming down. Yeah, Joe Biden's the man for the job. He is the man for today. He is. I think he deserves another term. I think we will benefit. More importantly, we will benefit from his leadership. Do I want Joe Biden forever or somebody like Joe Biden forever? No. In 2028, I want to see this country pulling left, hard left. I do. I want to see a young liberal president. But right now, look at the mess that Trump left him in Afghanistan. He pulled out of Afghanistan. He betrayed the government of Afghanistan that we had set up. Trump made a deal with terrorists, ceded 80, 90% of the country to them, just gave it back to them, drew down troops like crazy so that we couldn't control the country, and then left. Said, here you go, Joe. Intentionally. Trump intentionally said, he said it himself out of his own words. He intentionally did this so that Joe Biden could not stay in Afghanistan. And what did Joe Biden do? He bought us more time. He bought us more time. He made the drawdown more controlled. He made the Taliban know that, hey, we are not going to just leave our people willy-nilly. This isn't going to be Vietnam, folks. It isn't, where they were throwing helicopters over the side of aircraft carriers so that they could try to make room for other helicopters coming in because we were leaving, just flooding out of the country. That did not happen. That did not happen. Were the Afghani people taken off guard? Sure. Trump betrayed the shit out of them. They didn't believe we would act that way, so nobody was prepared. So it was awful for the Afghan people. But Joe did the best job anybody I know of could have done. The CHIP Act. We had the semiconductor, the chip shortages coming out of COVID. Nobody could get chips. Joe Biden's made sure that doesn't happen again. They're building chip manufacturing facilities all over Arizona. Exactly. Boss man, Texas. Thank you. Best economic recovery in the world after COVID. And that you got to give Joe Biden props for that. All right, let's find another. Thank you for that question. That was a great question. All right, folks, one more quick question and we will call it a day. It's a Biden celebration. We'll go ahead and call it quits, folks. It's I'm sorry we went long on the show, but I'm glad to have you with you, and I'm always glad to do this with you. We're here every Sunday. Please hit the like button while you're here, and subscribe. Statistics are showing that there's about 50% of the audience out there that hasn't subscribed yet. I watched YouTube for a long time without subscribing to anybody because I didn't know what it meant. It doesn't cost you anything. And it doesn't screw up your YouTube. All it does is makes it easy for you to find me, but it helps me a lot with the algorithm. So I'd appreciate if you'd hit it. Y'all have a wonderful day. Great talking to you. We'll see you next Sunday.